In this video, we will be discussing about the arterial supply of the heart. We will discuss about the right coronary artery, the branches of right coronary artery, the area supplied by the right coronary artery. We will discuss the left coronary artery, the branches and the area supplied. At last, we will discuss a few MCQs from this topic which are asked in entrance exams. So first of all, we will discuss about the arterial supply of the heart. We will go into the right coronary artery. So, right coronary artery. So, I'll draw the diagram first. This is a right atrium, right ventricle. So, this is the anterior aspect of the heart, and this is the anterior aspect, and this is the posterior aspect. So, we will discussing about the right coronary artery. So, we will discuss about the extent and then the branches. So, the right coronary artery is arising from the right anterior aortic sinus. So, arising from the right anterior aortic sinus. So, arises from right anterior aortic sinus of ascending aorta. So it arises from here and it passes between the right atrium. This is the right atrium, this is the left atrium, and this is the right ventricle, this is the left ventricle. So it passes between the right atrium and the pulmonary trunk, and it enters the right anterior coronary sulcus. So what happens? It then passes between pulmonary trunk and right atria. Then it enters right anterior coronary sulcus. Right anterior coronary sulcus. That is also right anterior atrioventricular groove. Right atrioventricular groove. So that is the right anterior coronary sulcus. Then it winds around the inferior border of the heart. Like this, it winds around the inferior border of the heart and it goes to the posterior aspect. Winds around the inferior border and goes to the posterior aspect like this. So this is the posterior aspect. So the right coronary artery, after winding around the inferior border, it reaches here, and the posterior aspect is running along the posterior right posterior atrioventricular groove. This is the right posterior atrioventricular groove. And after passing through the right posterior atrioventricular groove, it terminates by anastomosing with the circumflex branch of left coronary artery. So after passing through, it winds around inferior border of heart and reaches posterior right posterior coronary sulcus and terminates by anastomosing with circumflex branch of left coronary artery. So we will discuss about that is all about the course of right coronary artery. Now we will discuss about the branches of right coronary artery. So you can see that the right coronary artery here, it gives a main branch which is known as the right marginal. So this is the right marginal branch. So this one is labeled as 1, that is right marginal artery. That is also called acute marginal. And the second main branch is given off in the posterior aspect. That branch is the posterior interventricular branch. That is labeled as 2. That is 2. That is the posterior interventricular branch. And the third one is, that is to the right conus or infundibulum. That is labeled as 3. That is right conus artery or infundibular artery. And there are some small branches also. These branches are to the right atrium, branch to atrium, that is atrial branch. Fifth one, there is a branch to SA node also. That is 5, branch to SA node. So I think 65% of humans, the SA node is supplied by the right coronary artery. And there is another branch which is known as the anterior ventricular branch. That is 6. And that is anterior ventricular branch. So there is also a posterior ventricular branch here. That is the posterior ventricular branch. So these are the branches. Among this, the main branches are the right marginal artery or acute marginal artery, the posterior interventricular branch, the right conus artery. These are the main branches. These are the large branches. And there is a nodal branch to the SA node. The SA node is supplied by the right coronary artery in 65% of the humans. In rest of the 35% of the patients, this SA node is supplied by the left coronary artery. So there are branches to the atrium. There are anterior and posterior ventricular branches. Now, what are the areas supplied by the right coronary artery? So the areas supplied are, first one, we know that there is an atrial branch to the right atrium. So right atrium and a small portion of the left atrium is also supplied. So mainly right atrium. So the SA node is also supplied. SA node in 65% of the patients. And third one, it supplies majority of the right ventricle except an area adjoining the anterior interventricular group. So right ventricle except area near anterior interventricular group. Now other area is fourth one. It also supplies the left ventricle here in an area adjoining the posterior interventricular group. That is left ventricle in an area adjoining posterior interventricular group. And fifth one is it is supplying the conducting system of the heart except, that is important, except the right bundle branch and left branch of AV bundle. The right bundle branch and the left branch of AV bundle is supplied by the left coronary artery. So the areas supplied are the right atrium in the SA node, the area of the right ventricle except an area near the anterior interventricular groove which is being supplied by the left coronary artery, and it is also supplying a small portion of the left ventricle in an area adjoining the posterior interventricular groove, and it supplies almost all parts of the conducting system except the right bundle branch and the left branch of AV bundle. So that's all about the extent, the branches and the areas supplied by the right coronary artery. Now we will be discussing the extent, branches and areas supplied by the left coronary artery. So left coronary artery. So we'll draw the diagram. It's the anterior aspect and this the posterior aspect. Anterior and posterior. So the left coronary artery, it is arising from the left posterior aortic sinus. Left posterior aortic sinus. So arises from left posterior aortic sinus of the ascending aorta. Then it passes between the pulmonary trunk and left atrium. Then it passes through the left atrioventricular groove. Ventricular groove. So it is arising from the left posterior aortic sinus and passes between the pulmonary trunk, and this is the right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. Passes between the pulmonary trunk and left atrium and passes through the left atrioventricular groove like this. And it gives out a branch here which is known as the anterior interventricular branch, anterior interventricular or left anterior descending branch. So after giving out the anterior interventricular branch, it passes into the posterior aspect. So it reaches the posterior aspect here. And after giving out the anterior interventricular branch, it is left coronary artery is known as the left circumflex artery. The left circumflex artery, it enters the left posterior coronary sulcus like this. Sorry, this is the right one. Left coronary artery, it reaches here. And this is the right one, right coronary artery. This is the circumflex and left coronary artery. So it passes into the left posterior coronary sulcus and it anastomoses with the right coronary artery. So what happens after passing through the left atrioventricular groove, after giving out the branch, giving out LAD, left anterior descending branch over the anterior interventricular artery, it continues as left coronary artery continues as left circumflex artery. Left circumflex artery. So this is the left circumflex. Left circumflex artery, it reaches the posterior, left posterior coronary sulcus. And after reaching the region of posterior interventricular groove, it anastomoses with the with right coronary artery. So that is the course. And what are the branches here? So you can see that one of the main branches is left anterior descending branch, or that is labeled as 1. that is also called anterior interventricular branch. Anterior interventricular artery or left anterior descending artery. And second one, this also gives out a branch which is known as the diagonal branch. It is labeled as 2. Diagonal, that is left diagonal artery. And third one, the left coronary also gives out a left marginal artery here. That is labeled as 3. Third one is left marginal. The left marginal artery, this is left diagonal artery, and there is a left marginal artery. The left marginal artery is also known as obtuse marginal. Obtuse marginal. And the continuation of the left coronary artery is known as left circumflex, which anastomoses with the right coronary artery. Left circumflex artery. And fifth one, there are small branches, like there is a branch to the left conus which is called, that is 5, left conus artery. And sixth one, there is a branch to the left atrium, atrial branch. And seventh one, it also gives out anterior and posterior ventricular branches. Anterior and posterior ventricular branches. And it also gives out a nodal branch, that is SA nodal branch, in 35% of the cases. SA nodal branch. So what are the areas supplied? So areas supplied includes, first of all, left atrium. Majority of the left atrium is supplied, and left ventricle, almost all region of left ventricle except a small region which is adjoining, posterior interventricular groove, near posterior interventricular groove. And it also supplies a small part of right ventricle near anterior interventricular groove. And it also supplies SA node in 35% of cases, and right bundle branch and left branch of AV bundle. And another important point is that it is supplying the anterior 2/3 of ventricular septum. 2/3 of ventricular septum. So the anterior two-thirds of ventricular septum is supplied by the left coronary artery. That is important. So that is all about the supply of the left coronary artery. So one point to be mentioned in right coronary artery is that, so in the supply, it also supplies posterior one-third of the ventricular septum. That is, posterior one-third of the ventricular septum is supplied by the right coronary artery. Anterior two-thirds is supplied by the left coronary artery. Similarly, posterior one-third of the ventricular septum is supplied by the right coronary artery. And 2 points to be mentioned here. What is third coronary artery? What is third coronary artery? We know that the right cornus artery, normally it is arising from the right coronary artery, branch of right coronary artery. So sometimes it may arise from right cornus artery arising from anterior aortic sinus. So when it directly arises from the anterior aortic sinus, that is called third coronary artery. So which is the third coronary artery? That is the right cornus artery directly arising from the anterior aortic sinus. So what is dominance? So what do you mean by dominance? We know that normally the posterior interventricular groove is supplied by which artery? It is the right coronary artery. Groove is normally supplied by, in 85 to 95% of cases, it is supplied by the right coronary artery. So the artery which is supplying the posterior interventricular groove is called the dominant artery. So in 85 to 95% of the humans, the right coronary artery is supplying the posterior interventricular groove. So in 85 to 90% of cases, right coronary artery is called the dominant artery. That is called right dominant artery. So in rest 10% of cases, the posterior interventricular groove is supplied by left coronary artery. That is called left dominance. So more common is right dominance. What is codominance then? Codominance or balanced pattern, where the posterior interventricular groove is supplied by branches of both left coronary artery and right coronary artery. So more common is right dominance, and right coronary artery is the dominant artery. So we will discuss a few questions from this part. So question number 1. Right coronary artery supplies all of the following parts of the conducting system in the heart except. So we know that the right bundle branch is being supplied by the left coronary artery. So correct answer here is option D. The second question, blood supply of the ventral two-thirds of the interventricular septum of the heart is, that is left coronary artery. So option B is the right answer. And question number 3. True statement about right coronary artery. Here there is more than one correct option. So diameter less than left coronary artery, that is true. It is arising from the anterior aortic sinus, that is true. It is supplying major part of right atrium and right ventricle, it is correct. And option D, it doesn't give rise to circumflex branch. Circumflex coronary branch is a branch of left coronary artery. Question number 4 is branch of right coronary artery. We know that obtuse marginal is a branch of left coronary. So acute marginal, option B is correct. Posterior interventricular branch. A and D are branches of left coronary artery. And question number 5, anterior interventricular artery is a branch of. This is a branch of left coronary artery. SA node blood supply is, we know that in 65% the SA node is supplied by the right coronary artery. So third coronary artery, we have mentioned it in the last section, that is the cornus artery. And question number 8, Coase triangle has blood supply from, so it is located in the right atrium, so it is supplied by the right coronary. Cardiac dominance is based on, it is based on which artery? Posterior interventricular artery. And question, last question, the circumflex artery arises of the posterior circumflex artery gives out the posterior interventricular artery, then arterial supply. We know that the circumflex artery is a branch of left coronary artery. If it is supplying the posterior interventricular groove, it is known as left dominance. So it is left dominance. So that's all about the arterial supply of the heart and the coronary artery. Thank you for watching this video. To see more videos from our channel, please subscribe our channel. Thank you.